What we are going to be doing is going to affect the future of Issaquah for a long, long time. And I want you to know that this property that you're sitting in on the ground, we've owned for 49 years. We have been here in Issaquah for 57 years. And we are different than most of the developers that you'll run into. Most developers come into a community, they build something, they put some people in there, they wait till it settles down, they sell it and move on. And that's never been our philosophy. We have been long-term holders. We don't sell things, we pass them from generation to generation. What we're doing now is that over the years, we built these buildings, and it's come to a point where the useful life of these buildings is no longer appropriate for what we have as far as ground is concerned. You can see that we have approximately 60 acres from here out to the highway, and then there's another 20 acres on the other side of the SR 900 road. Well, one of the things that we realized right off the bat was the difficulties that we have from a political standpoint. City councils come and go. City councils, 1 4-year period of time will be pro-growth. City councils, the next 4 years will be anti-growth. Then city councils will be in between. More ordinances get piled on top of ordinances, and it makes it very difficult to plan for the future with something that you know for sure you can do. And so what we're doing with the plan unit development contract, or the development contract, is to take out some of the mystery, some of the things that can happen to a developer that can get them into trouble, and leave us with the economy and the ability to finance these things. We are presently zoned intensive commercial out here, which consists of just about anything from retail to office to you name it, with the exception of residential. We're not allowed to build homes here. The planned unit development that we are going to be proposing will include a mix of all of those things, including residential. It's going to spell out how high our buildings can be, what our setbacks are going to be, what our constraints are as far as sensitive areas are going to be, what the sign code's going to look like, the whole thing. And I can tell you for sure that this thing is going to be built in phases. We are not wanting to take on any partners. And so for us to be able to handle the complete redevelopment, we're probably looking at somewhere between 10 to 12 phases over a long period of time. The market will drive how fast we go. And to make it so that you can understand one of the phase facets here is that it's our intention all along to build a group of buildings and borrow the money from a commercial bank under a construction loan, build a building, fill it full of people, and then after a couple of years, and once it's solidified as far as what it's going to be doing, so the bank will sell that loan out into the secondary market. And then that cleans up the bank and we're ready to do another phase. What's important for me is that when we do a loan with a commercial bank, they get me to personally guarantee. And when the loan is sold off in the secondary market, that recourse requirement goes away. So we're set to do another phase. And we will go through the project on that basis.
And we've really reached that point where if we don't start doing things differently as a community, we stand to lose some of the treasures that we hold most dear, including the green hillsides that surround us, the Issaquah Alps. You know, Issaquah's connection with nature is one of the vital parts of what this place is all about and how it differs from the rest of the communities around us. So it's really important that we protect that. But also, if we don't start accommodating our growth differently, we stand to lose in the way of economic vitality as well, and our community will die. So we need to help Issaquah figure out how to adapt to the growth that's coming, which is largely, frankly, our children and their children, to help our community be able to receive that additional growth and density.
This is a redevelopment. It's not a development, and there's a big difference. Issaquah Highlands was a development. It was full of trees. There wasn't one road on it. There wasn't any water lines, there was no sewer lines, no power, no nothing. So they started from scratch. In our particular instance, we have roads. We may move them, but we have roads. We have water, we have sewer. We know that we're going to have to build another reservoir to be able to provide the fire flow necessary for this site at some particular point in the development. The city is looking at us saying, you're gonna have to build this reservoir.
The other thing is, again, we've got this whole issue with Issaquah needing to transition from the suburban community to something that is more dense. And the only way to really be able to use different planning tools is through a development agreement. So we've seen development agreements work for both the Highlands and Talus. They're very different products than what our typical suburban building codes and regulations allow. Those tools have worked very well. And so that's why we are pursuing a development agreement with the city, is to basically take those tools that have worked and modify them so that they will fit the constraints of the valley floor, the commercial corridor that we find ourselves in, as well as work with the fact that we develop over time gradually. And if we keep repeating studies again and again and again, that's just not a cost-effective model for doing business.
To build that hotel, we had to take out 3 small 4,000 square foot warehouses each, and about 1.5 acres to 2 acres of vacant property. Those parcels, in the year that we took them out, generated $16,000 worth of real estate taxes. That hotel generates $160,000 worth of real estate taxes and an additional $20,000 of personal property taxes.
So that's more money that's available to the city to be able to maintain the parks and fix the roads and the streets. It's more money to the school districts.
60%, 60 or 70% of those taxes went to schools. A certain portion goes to the state, but anyway, that's a huge deal.
My question is there's, in 30 years, there's Hyla. On the other end of the valley, there's Front Street, in that incredible resource down there. There's the stuff in the middle. What kind of thinking you're doing as you go, how to integrate all of these things? Because the reality is, for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you've got a little bit here, a lot down there that has a lot of, where the energy is, and then what I think of as the vast ugly wasteland.
Yes, the historic downtown area is really one of the few places in Issaquah that actually has a sense of place today. It has character. You'd want to be able to live down there. People do walk down there,
Yeah.
and you're very involved in that.
And my next door neighbor, Bush Street is well represented. The 200 block of Bush Street is well represented.
Please note that.
Excellent. And obviously, the only properties that we can control are really ours. And with the city's central area plan, the fact that they divided up the valley floor into districts, and the fact that they got the idea that each district should be informed by its character. For example, Hyla Crossing has Tibbetts Creek that goes right through it, a great natural amenity that really sets a tone and a character that's already here. Rowley Center is nearby a transit facility, or will be nearby whatever future transit we have. That's going to really inform that character. Rowley Center is a place that you kind of go through. Hyla Crossing is a place that you go to. So the other districts on the valley floor have had similar types of thoughts to help define what their character is, but they have much broader ownership and will probably develop over a slower period of time, and won't have those contiguous pieces together unless things change, which they can.
We're working with the city to see that we have a contiguous trail aspect through the town, that it becomes pedestrian and bicycle oriented, that we slow down some of the traffic that goes down SR 900, for instance, and we can actually get more cars through it at a slower rate, depending on how the signals are, all of this sort of stuff. We're working with the city staff on developing that. And as we do that, it begins to develop and coordinate the whole valley floor. And we're doing it.
Great.
And as we change,
Yeah.
you'll start to see others.
Do you see any way in all this plan that 30 years from now that lakefront can be any more integral to the vision of this area than?
I'm so glad
It
you
looks
asked
right
that
now.
question. If I were queen, we turn our back to the lake right now in Issaquah. And I think that's a real shame. I mean, we have waterfront property here in Issaquah, and yet we can't celebrate it as a community. And I would love to see a view corridor opened up so that you could see the lake from Issaquah. I'd love to see the trails better connected so that bikes and pedestrians can, actually go in a contiguous loop somewhere. And this might be just me personally, but I'd like to see some of that park area developed to have some amenities that people could use so that they could enjoy it. A wonderful restaurant in that facility, kind of waterfront, would be amazing for this community. So it requires thinking outside the box, and it requires folks like you, if you believe in that same kind of thing, to come to some of these meetings and ask for it, because there aren't many people who are asking for that. We do not have specific plans, and we don't have buildings designed. I can't tell you where they're going to be because we need the flexibility to respond to the market as it evolves over the course of the next 30 years. We don't have specific phases outlined, but because, again, we have to respond to the market and timing. But we've already, with the development of our Hilton Garden Inn hotel in this building, got something going here at this end of Gilman Boulevard. And so likely the next thing that you see happening will continue to happen at this end of Gilman Boulevard to build some synergy and momentum, and then it'll kind of spread out from there. On the Rowley Center side, it's a little trickier because that side is going to be informed by Issaquah's future decisions regarding transit. So right now we have an 800 stall parking garage basically on that end of town. And if that's all Issaquah gets for mass transit, then we'll probably put some higher densities closer to that facility, although, you know, you've only got 800 people coming and parking their car and leaving. However, if light rail someday ever does come to Issaquah, you know, we don't know exactly where it's going to go because Issaquah doesn't have a plan for it right now. I can guess that it's probably going to stay along the I-90 corridor because that would be the most cost-effective thing. And if that happens, there's probably going to be some stations. I would guess that 12th Avenue would be one of them based on what's in the central Issaquah sub-area plan, where the 12th Avenue area is really what they're identifying as the future commercial business district of Issaquah. And that's where we would cluster our density, would be closer on that side toward I-90. So Rowley Center really is going to depend on what that future transit strategy is, and I know the city has started to plan what that might look like for Issaquah. But in the meantime, I have some properties over there that frankly have nothing on them, and that's not going to work either. So I will likely have to figure out a way to put some interim uses and possibly even some interim facilities on those properties so that we can keep paying the property taxes.